Hello, welcome to the podcast, Human Rights in America, a Revolutionary Mindset. I am your host, Sue Young. So, 2024 has come and gone. It was a good year. This podcast is in the top 1% globally, all because I stuck it out and passed the 21st episode. I technically have more than 21. This is probably episode 23. I didn't start to number the episodes until I was in it. So rah. I did it. Of course, there's work to be done because I want to reach more listeners, to reach wider audiences, and to get this message out. Americans deserve more human rights. Rights that are legislated, made into law, and protected. Who told us that we should be satisfied with our current healthcare system? Who told us that men are the standard or preferred gender, as evidenced by the limiting language of our own Constitution that says all men are created equal, as opposed to a more inclusive statement like the UN Declaration that says all humans are created free and equal? Do words matter? I say yes, especially when I was taught, oh, just insert women. We really mean men and women. Then why not just say humans, as directed by the UN Declaration? This year, let's do something revolutionary, bold, and radically forward-thinking. What if? Let's start with the individual, which brings me to a great book titled The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. In no particular order, do this for yourself in 2025 and you'll be taking a giant step for humanity. 1. Always do your best. 2. Don't take anything personally. 3. Don't make assumptions. 4. Be impeccable with your word. These are keys to happiness. It works. I was a substitute teacher at my old high school. It was surreal. Peoria High School. The same halls, the same stairwells, the same lockers. Anyway, I was teaching history class. Of course, we watched the news, but for the last 15 minutes, I taught the students these principles because I don't think that you have to wait until you're older to hear these. The kids became instantly engaged and asked questions. Wow, I was a little nervous, but I took the bold step and I taught them. So this year, let's take a bold step and do something for others. Be a philanthropist. Be revolutionary. Okay, it's 2025. It's time to go to work. Wanted to include this topic with my last year-end stats, but I wanted to keep that episode upbeat. I deleted it from the year-end stats. But this topic came up towards the end of the year, so I am saddened to report that the United States is on a list of declining democracies found around the world. This article was originally published in September 2022 and last updated in May 2024. The chart shows that the world has become less democratic in recent years. The number of democracies in the world reached an all-time high in 2016, with 95 electoral democracies. In 2023, their number has fell to 91 countries. The number of people that have democratic rights has recently plummeted. Between 2016 and 2023, this number fell from 3.9 billion to 2.3 billion people. Similarly, the number of people living in liberal democracies fell from 1.2 billion in 2012 to 1 billion a decade later. Examples of people losing democratic rights are the 1.4 billion people in India, the 84 million people in Turkey, and the 28 million people in Venezuela, and millions of others in Poland, Brazil, the Philippines, and the United States. The United States is experiencing two major forms of democratic erosion in its governing institutions. They are election manipulation and executive overreach. Since 2010, state legislatures have instituted laws intended to reduce voters' access to the ballot, politicize election administration, and foreclose electoral competition via extreme gerrymandering. In the U.S., executive power has grown significantly, threatening civil service independence. With a gridlocked, hyperpartisan Congress, impartial executive oversight is lacking. The report card. The United States scored 7.85 in 2024 and again landed in the flawed democracy category where it has resided since falling from full democracy in 2016. The reasons include intolerance of COVID-19 restrictions, distrust in the government, bipartisan gridlock, and especially the increasing ideological polarization between Democrats and Republicans, all cited as contributors to the lower score. But democratic erosion in the United States is not synonymous with Donald Trump. Since 2010, state legislatures have instituted laws intended to reduce voters' access to the ballot, politicize election administration, and foreclose electoral competition via extreme gerrymandering. I say all of this to say each and every one of us must participate in this democracy if you believe in it. Declining democracies have fewer human rights. According to the report, the top 5 countries for human rights were Finland with a grade of 98 or A, Australia 92 or A-, Estonia 92 or A-, Sweden 92 or A-, and Austria 90 or A-. The bottom 5 were Iran 0 or an F, Syria 6 or an F, Yemen with an 8 or an F, Venezuela 12 or an F, and Egypt 14 or an F. Canada had the highest grade in the Americas with an 88 or B. Taiwan led the Asian nations with a score of a 78 or a C+, while Cape Verde had the highest score in Africa with an 84 or B. The United States had a 64 or a D, ranking 59th in the world. Generally speaking, countries with less democratic governments tend to have weaker protections for human rights. And authoritarian regimes may prioritize control over individual freedoms, leading to restrictions on free speech, assembly, and the press. Additionally, political dissent may be suppressed, and there can be limited access to justice and legal recourse for individuals. Human rights violations in less democratic countries might include arbitrary detention, torture, lack of fair trials, and discrimination against certain groups. On the other hand, democratic countries are more likely to have legal frameworks and institutions in place that protect individual rights and promote accountability. In 2017, the Duma, Russia's legislative body, decriminalized domestic violence that does not require hospital treatment. Under the law, if the domestic violence leads to bruises or minor injuries, then there is no punishment for the offender. What if? What if the United States does not want to lead the world in human rights? Then what country do we follow? Canada or Russia? It's important to note that the relationship between democracy and human rights can be complex and influenced by various factors, including culture and economic conditions and international relations. Some democracies can also have human rights issues, so the situation can vary widely from one country to another. It's complicated, this democracy thing, this human rights thing, but this is our mission. We were born for such a time as this. Most of us didn't go through the First or Second World War. Most of us weren't around for slavery in the United States. And none of us were around when they drafted and passed the U.S. Constitution. But we're here now. What bold, revolutionary thought or action will you take for the good of others this year? Will you work on the 4 agreements? What will be our legacy for future generations? It's a new year. And I'll leave you with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. We in America do not have government by majority. We have government by the majority who participate. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Thank you again for listening. Listen, subscribe, and pass it along. Happy New Year. Until next time, be revolutionary, be human.